Hey everybody, I'm Ethan.
And I'm Jesse.
And today we're taking a look at the Avadar C3 Sport.
Next on Now Let's Review. Before we begin, I just want to let you know that Avadar did send us this bike for us to review, but that's not going to affect our review of the bike. It's going to be based purely on our experiences with it.
The Avadar C3 Sport is a fairly average looking bike with a typical diamond frame and normal bike shape and styling. In fact, there aren't many features that hint at this bike being electric at all. The 36-volt, 10-amp-hour removable battery is fully integrated into the frame, and aside from the LED headlight and a few extra wires, nothing really gives it away as an electric bike. Most noticeable to people familiar with e-bikes is that there is no hub motor on the rear wheel, and this is because the C3 is a mid-drive bike. The 250-watt mid-drive motor makes riding this bike extremely easy thanks to 5 levels of torque and cadence sensing pedal assist. I haven't ridden many bikes with mid-drive motors, but the assist from this motor is extremely smooth and almost feels like it isn't there at all, which is exactly what you want from pedal assist.
The big thing with this bike is the mid-drive motor. With most of the e-bikes that we've covered, the motor sits on usually the rear wheel, and that is what powers the bike. In this case, the motor is with the pedals, which means that as you pedal, all the power of the motor is going through the gearing.
Yeah, and the fact that the motor actually puts the power through the gearing, like you said, is a huge advantage over hub motors. Hub motors are basically locked onto the rear wheel, so like there's only a certain amount of like speed and power you can get out of it. Whereas with this, whatever gear you're in is basically going to be determining how fast the bike can go and also how much power and torque you're putting into the rear wheel. So it's entirely dependent on what gear you're in and how much power you're putting in as well. I do like mid-drive motors better because they're much smoother. They're not as like jerky. The engagement isn't as like on or off. This is also torque and cadence sensing, so it's not only measuring how fast you're pedaling, it's also measuring how much force you're putting into the pedals and then using that to determine how much power to output into the bike's drivetrain. This is a 250-watt motor, so definitely not the most powerful by any means, but because it is a mid-drive motor instead of a hub motor, that power is used much more efficiently.
So I would say that this feels a lot more like riding a normal bike, just if it was slightly easier to ride a normal bike. And so it has 5 levels of pedal assist. I've tried all of them. I liked the middle levels.
Yeah, a lot of bikes that have like 5 levels of pedal assist. Basically, 1 and 2 are the same, 3 and 4 are the same, and 5 is just insane. It's like each pedal assist mode is just a different top speed.
Right, and it is. I mean, let's be honest, it is with a lot of e-bikes. With this, it really felt like it was putting in more power. I really like that feeling.
Ideally, I would like a more powerful motor since 250 watts is on the very low end of e-bike motor power, but for the motor size, it is quite impressive. The C3 has a top speed of 28 miles per hour, and the claimed range for this bike is 31 to 62 miles. I don't really like when companies give huge spreads in their claimed range like that because you can obviously get more or less range depending on how fast you go, how heavy you are, what level of pedal assist you use, the terrain you ride on, and so forth. I didn't get a chance to test the range fully, but I think over 30 miles is definitely achievable in a low level of pedal assist since you have to be doing some of the work at all times. The bike has a maximum rider weight of 220 pounds, which is a bit low, but is probably limited for range purposes. The battery charges in 4 hours, so you can have a full charge at the end of the day to ride home if you take the bike to work. The bike itself weighs 55 pounds, which is light enough to easily carry on an e-bike rated bike rack. Featured on the C3 Sport is an 8-speed Shimano shifter, front and rear hydraulic disc brakes that offer great stopping power, and a color LCD screen that shows speed, pedal assist mode, mileage, and battery level. Next to the screen are buttons to change the pedal assist mode as well as the power button. So overall, the build quality of this bike is actually pretty good. I've been impressed with it. It seems well made. The welds look decent. I mean, it hasn't concerned me with any kind of like rattling or shaking when I've been riding it.
Yeah, I mean, I really like that you're getting a front fork suspension. That makes a really big difference when you hit those really big bumps where you just go, you know, that's gonna make a big difference for you. The brakes, really nice hydraulic brakes. A lot of stopping power with not too much hand force. Although I will say I do have a couple gripes. One is with the screen. The battery indicator on it isn't an intelligent battery indicator. It's basically a voltage meter mapped to a percentage. And the problem with that is that as you're riding, if you're asking a lot from the motor, that's gonna drop the battery percentage down. You're gonna go, oh my gosh, you're gonna stop the bike, and then it'll jump back up to 100%. That doesn't tell you much. That's not a very helpful thing. And basically what it's going to do is, when you're stopped, it's going to give you a false sense of security. And when you're riding, it's gonna make you feel worried. And there's not gonna be too much middle ground, and you're not really going to be able to judge when the battery is going to die. My other major gripe is that this one in particular doesn't have any fenders, which means that if you're riding through puddles or stuff like that, you're gonna get the stripe up your back of the dirt or the water. Fenders would make a really nice addition, and they do have a lot of attachment points for fenders. That would be kind of my only two major gripes. What about you?
Honestly, I can't really think of much. My only big complaint with this is that I wish the motor was bigger. 250 watts for the most part is great with this. It can get you up just about any hills or whatever, but like, there are some points where even in Pedal Assist 5, if you're trying to go up a really steep hill, you got to do most of the work just because, it is a 250 watt motor. Having it be a little bigger and more powerful would be great. There are only 2 reflectors on the bike that I see, and there's no brake light either. Obviously, these are things you can buy separately, probably for not too much extra money, but it's one of those things that if you're gonna be commuting, you probably wanna have, and it's just a little bit inconvenient to not have them from the factory.
I mean, visibility is so important, and that's why we're sponsored by Lumos. They make a helmet with, I don't know if you can see this, a headlight and a brake light. And so these can react to how you're riding and actually provide you with blinkers, all sorts of different things. This one has a LED screen on the back.
Yeah, this is the Lumos Matrix, so you can customize this screen to display whatever you want. These helmets also have directionals and a little remote that you can clip onto the handlebars of the bike or scooter or whatever you're riding. And I mean, I don't know how you can get much safer on the road than by wearing one of these if you're on a bike. These are crazy. They're super bright. I'm actually like hurting my eyes by holding this towards myself. Yeah, this has brake light displays. It has customizable messages you can put on it. So there's another one. All these cool things you can have.
So if visibility is something that's important to you, definitely check out Lumos helmets. They also use MIPS or MIPS, which is one of the safest forms of helmet. So if safety is a concern for you, and if you're riding a lot, it really should be, definitely consider Lumos helmets. Thank you so much, Lumos, for sponsoring today's show.
The riding experience on the C3 Sport is honestly very good. The mid-drive motor is extremely smooth, the front suspension allows the bike to handle rough terrain pretty well, and it actually is quite enjoyable to ride both on pavement and on some trails through the woods. I wouldn't consider this a true mountain bike and wouldn't recommend downhill riding with it, but for riding dirt trails, this bike is really fun. The C3 doesn't have a throttle, so you will have to pedal it at all times to keep it moving, but the high levels of pedal assist will do most of the work for you if you get tired towards the end of a ride or need some help getting up hills.
What is the price?
So currently it is listed at $1,980 US on their website. I think it's a pretty reasonable price for this bike. You are getting a mid-drive motor, which is pretty uncommon for the most part in the e-bike world, especially for an affordable e-bike. Most e-bikes that have mid-drive motors are top tier, really expensive. This is by no means cheap pocket change, but it is of the more affordable type of e-bike, I would argue, and having a mid-drive motor and the build quality and everything, I think that's a pretty fair price for the bike.
Now, I mean, yes, there are cheaper e-bikes, even some with more powerful motors, although those will almost always be on the hub. What you're paying for with this bike, I'll be honest, is the mid-drive, is the pedaling experience. If that's something that you care about, great. If it's something you don't care about, maybe consider looking at some of the hub motor e-bikes with 500 or 750 watts of power, because you probably can find some that are cheaper than this bike specifically, and it'll maybe have a little bit more range, different capabilities and stuff like that. For what this bike is, which is a pedaler's experience, I think that it is a great price. Again, mid-drive bikes are usually in the premium cycling price category. We're talking $4,000 plus. And so getting into a bike for about $2,000 that can do a lot of the same stuff, which is already a really nice bike with hydraulic brakes and good shifters and a headlight, not that bad. Something to definitely consider depending on what you're interested in. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Now Let's Review. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to go check out the Avadar Oh, Avada Kedavra! With
the green lightning bolt and everything.
We got it. We figured it out. It's Avadar. Evader?
I don't know.
It's not Evader, it's Avader. Anyway,
Avader.
if you liked it, you can go check out their website. We'll post it in the links down below. And hey, if you liked this episode, please consider hitting the like button. It helps us out a lot on this show. Also, if you haven't subscribed, consider subscribing. We have lots more bikes that we're reviewing.
Yeah, leave a comment down below about what you think of this bike, or tell us what you want to see us review next. We're always looking for new things to review. So if you have anything in particular that you want to see us review, let us know and we'll try to get it.
Thank you so much for watching. Now let's review.